Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the Key on Millions.co. Here's my media feed. We also have merchandise that is live and available right now. Here is the merchandise. Here's our sweaters, hoodies, t-shirts. We have more merchandise that we are going to be rolling out within the new year. So please, please, please go and get your stuff now, right now. And now we can get to the moment why we all tune in every day. The moment why you all tune in every day to my show for my reaction and predictions to these games, whether it's college or pro football. And this was week 16. Week 16 started out in Seattle. Now, this was going to be the game that had so much weight on the number one seed, which it does, and whoever lost this game was going to drop in the playoff picture. Now, the playoff picture for both conferences is almost said and done. Only two teams in each conference. We are just focused on 4 and 7. Now, these are the two teams for both conferences who could be, well, the four teams, two in each conference, could be making it to the playoffs. You have the Steelers that are in the hunt. They are currently the 4th seed. The Texans, they are currently the 7th seed. Packers, currently the 7th seed. Panthers, currently the 4th seed right now. But nothing is set in stone. Now, when we get back to the matchup at hand, I know that there was a lot of people that were confused about a certain play call in this game with that 2-point conversion. But that was the right call. It was. Because Sam Darnold, he went back to pass, and even though the referee had blew his whistle, a player for the Rams, he went at the ball. So the player for the Rams went at the ball. He didn't catch the ball. It wound up being a fumble, and a player from the Seahawks recovered it, picked it up, was in the end zone for the 2 points. But one thing, I know everybody is a little confused about if the whistle blows, does the play stop? Not in all cases. In all cases, the referees, they want these plays to play out, and then they'll review those plays. Now, that was a play in and of itself that had so much weight. There was another game in Detroit with the Steelers and the Lions that had a significant amount of weight on the playoff picture. So now, the Rams, Matthew Stafford played a great game. 29 of 49, 457 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Sam Darnold, 22 of 34, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I didn't think that Seattle would come back in this game, but there's a lot that is not getting talked about. The Rams, they had a 16-point lead with under 8 minutes left in this game. Nobody is talking about that. 16-point lead with under 8 minutes left. And they had the ball they could have went up at least 19 or 23. So the Rams, this is a game where the Rams are going to look back at the end of the season and say, if they make it to the NFC Championship, if they want to know why the reason they're not hosting the NFC Championship, this is going to be the game. Thursday night football between the Seahawks will be the reason why. So all in all, it was a very, very entertaining game. Both defenses, they couldn't stop anybody. So this was basically an offensive shootout. And you can see that when it comes to the third down efficiency. 8 of 20 for the Rams, 4 of 11 for the Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks, they were basically playing catch up most of the game. And when it comes to the Rams, time of possession, they had 40 minutes time of possession. All of the teams in NFL history that have at least a time of possession of 40 minutes plus, they go on to win those games 89% of the time. The 11%, the Rams fall in that 11% now. Let's just face it. The Rams, they should have won this game. They should be the number one seed right now, but yet they are number 6. They are number 6 right now in the NFC. My, how much the playoff brackets turn after 24 to 38 hours. Well, excuse me, 24 to 72 hours. The next game I'm going to cover is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders. Not too much was going on in this game. I expected the Eagles to run away with this game, and they did. But we all know that, when it comes to division rivals, the game is going to be closer than everybody predicts. So, Eagles, NFC East champions, repeat NFC East champions for the first time in 21 years. So congratulations to the Eagles. Washington Commanders, go back to the drawing board and get ready for the NFL draft that is going to be within a few months. The next game I'm going to cover, the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. One thing I got to say about everybody is Caleb Williams. I told people not to throw in the towel on Caleb Williams too early. 19 of 34, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and I'm just going to say this. The Bears, they weren't doing anything before those last 2 drives. They weren't. But then all of a sudden, Caleb Iceman Williams came, and that is his nickname, America. Iceman. Caleb Iceman Williams. He took control of this game from the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. He took over the game, and the Packers, they had a 97% chance at winning this game when they had the lead with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But you have a fumbled onside kick recovery that the Bears got. You also go into overtime, and I'm just going to say that the Packers, there's no reason that the Packers should have allowed the game to go into overtime, because they had chance after chance to win the game in regulation. But one thing I'm going to say is, for the Packers, now that early season success they had when they were 4-0 after the first month of the season, this is why I always say, early season success doesn't mean anything. It's about what you do in late November and early December. Now, the Bears in this case, everybody is saying that nobody saw the Bears being a playoff team. Wrong. I did. I had them as one of my dark horse teams to make it to the playoffs. Also, the Patriots. And if the Panthers can handle business, I'll be 3 for 3 in that department. My credibility when it comes to predicting teams like this is wonderful. It's wonderful because nobody expected the Bears to be a playoff contender, because that's a team that just flew under the radar. The Patriots, a team that has flown under the radar before the season started. And then you had the Panthers, another team that has flown under the radar before it started. The Bears. One thing I can say about the Bears is, if the Bears get to the Super Bowl, It wouldn't surprise me because one thing I do notice about Chicago is ain't nobody trying to be in that damn cold come January. Ain't nobody trying to play no football in Chicago. Now, like I said, Chicago, the Bears, they have the edge because they know what that weather is like. I'm gonna tell y'all something. Chicago, they don't have a summer there. Their summer, it only lasts 3 weeks, and that's between the last 2 weeks of May and the first week of June. Chicago, when it comes to that weather, it is almost like Antarctica weather when you go to Chicago. And the Bears could possibly have a chance at hosting a playoff game there. So ain't nobody gonna be able. There is nobody that is going to be able to withstand that weather and also be able to go in there and get a win. I have seen it too many times before where playoff teams go into Chicago, try and get a win, and come out on the losing side of it. So Bears going to the playoffs, Patriots going to the playoffs. Now the Panthers, let's see what the Panthers can do. Can they make it to the playoffs? And can I go for a clean sweep when it comes to dark horse playoff predictions for the NFL? Or are the Panthers going to let their fans down? We will see. We will see. The next game I'm going to cover is the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns. I am so happy that we are at the end of the season because it seems like every week when it comes to the Cleveland Browns, I'm hearing people plead their case to let Stefanski go and all this other stuff. Now, Stefanski, he is going to be fired. He is. So speculation is that the Browns, they already have three coaches in mind. The Browns already have three coaches in mind that they are going to hire. Now, I cannot say either of the names right now because it's speculation. Now, one thing that I can say is that the Browns, you have a foundation. If you start Shador, you have a foundation. But one thing, Deshaun Watson is coming back too. Deshaun Watson will be back next season, and the only way that the Browns will start Deshaun Watson over Shador is because they need some value on their investment because Deshaun Watson, he hasn't played in 2 years. Now, if I was Deshaun Watson, I would just sit my ass on the sideline because you're paying me anyway. My contract is fully guaranteed. I'm just saying. So when it comes to Deshaun Watson, we all know that Deshaun Watson, he is not going to turn down a chance to play again. But when it comes to Shador Sanders is the future when it comes to the Browns. And I hope the Browns don't mess up their future like they've done the past 20 years. And I could basically, no, not the past 20 years, the past 35 years, the Browns have messed up their future. Always pushing it to one quarterback that they don't even believe in and who is gone within the next 2 years. So now we get to a point where we see where the Browns, their organizational structure is bad. I've been saying this for years. Organizational structure is bad for the Browns. Quarterback play has been bad ever since Bernie Kosar. GM general manager has been bad, and the ownership, now that they are under some new ownership, Jimmy Haslam, he hasn't had the team for, he's only had the team for 20 years. So we can see that it's been 20 years of not being able to, not being able to get the right type of quarterback play and production on the field. And as far as for the Buffalo Bills, they're making the playoffs no matter what. Now once the Buffalo Bills do make the playoffs, Buffalo Bills will not have home field advantage, America. They won't. They won't have home field advantage. They'll The way that everything is shaking up right now, the Buffalo Bills will be facing the Jaguars. So and I'm just gonna go ahead, and when we start talking about this matchup, we start talking about this potential playoff matchup, I believe the Jaguars, they have the edge when it comes to facing the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. That's when and if this playoff matchup happens. Because the Buffalo Bills offense is pretty much stagnant. And you have Trevor Lawrence, who is wheeling and dealing right now with this 6-game winning streak. And I'm going to get into the Jaguars a little bit later on in this show. But Buffalo, as far as the dominance in the AFC, your dominance in the AFC is gone. You got the Broncos and the Patriots, top two teams in the AFC. And as far as for the bottom two teams, it'll be the Bills and the Texans, more than likely the Texans. So, and also, one thing I can say is the Steelers, I'm going to just save my Steelers take for later on in the show, because why does everybody, we come out of years and we go into the new year. It's year after year. Is Mike Tomlin going to get fired by the Steelers? Y'all keep on saying that. And we all know Mike Tomlin's record speaks for itself. We all know that Mike Tomlin's record speaks for itself. But before I get into the Steelers or the Jaguars, I have got to finish my take with the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, one and done. I can see the Buffalo Bills may be one and done, America. And that is not far-fetched for me to say. That is not far-fetched for me to say. So the Buffalo Bills, even though this might be the best chance for them to go to the Super Bowl, because you are in a playoff bracket where you don't have to deal with Lamar Jackson. You don't have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. But still, you got to deal with these young guns. You got to deal with Bo Nix. Now, one thing I can say about Bo Nix, he's up and down, but with Sean Payton, that's going to give the Broncos the experience that they need. The Patriots were a wounded dog the last 4 years. They couldn't get anything right. Now the Patriots are back. Jaguars, they haven't had this high of a seeding since 2007. So one thing about that. So we got to take baby steps with them. Chargers. The Chargers are going to Charger. I don't see in a remote world where the Chargers are the number one seed in the AFC. Chargers don't have a home field advantage, so the Chargers become the one seed. That ain't gonna mean nothing. That ain't gonna mean nothing to nobody in the AFC. And then you have the Bills. I just talked about the Bills. Then you have the Texans. I thought that they were left for dead after week 7. I thought they were left for dead. But now we get to the next game on the list, and it is the LA Chargers. LA Chargers did what they were supposed to do. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys, another season of no playoffs. It's been a while since the Dallas Cowboys played in a meaningful game in December. and won a meaningful game in December. Now, me as a Cowboys fan, I always talk to, my fellow Cowboy fans, and I always tell them, they always say, well, we going to make the playoffs. I'm like, first, we got to win a meaningful game in December first, because it's been about maybe, I'm willing to say 4 years since the Cowboys won a meaningful game in December. And I'm not talking about one of those meaningful games where you have a team that's maybe 1 or 2 games above 500 and you win that game and that's a meaningful game. No, I'm talking about a meaningful win against a team that could have the best record in the AFC. In the NFC, could be hosting the NFC Championship. You win that game, and you pretty much bring the favorite down a little bit. That is the kind of meaningful game I'm talking about. And the Cowboys, they haven't had a meaningful win like that in almost 4, maybe 5 years. For the Chargers, it's the same thing with them. Chargers, it's been a while since their franchise can say that they had a meaningful win. Chargers and the Cowboys, when it comes to meaningful wins in recent years, they in the same boat. Now, Cowboys, season is done. Jerry, I saw Jerry, he looked like he wanted to cry. He did, because he put everything in. That's wrong. I ain't gonna say that he put all his eggs in this basket for this season, because we know that he was out there focused on gas and oil. And me, hey, I don't blame him. If I got a chance to get $100 billion, to get my hands on $100 billion natural gas, hell, I don't even care about NFL business right now, because I'm trying to get the gas. Now, he didn't, or from what I'm hearing, the natural gas is somewhere, but nobody knows exactly where the natural gas is at. So it's a mystery. That's mystery gas right now. But I can say, when they do find that $100 billion worth of natural gas, I sure want in on that investment. But back to what I was saying, as far as the Chargers are going to Charger. If everything falls into the right place, the Chargers would be facing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. And I would have to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers in that. I would have to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers in that potential playoff first round matchup. The next game I'm going to cover is the Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs and Tennessee Titans. This game didn't have no weight on the playoff picture, so Titans blew out the Chiefs. The next game I'm going to cover, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. Cincinnati Bengals and Miami Dolphins, this game didn't have much. Didn't have nothing. So, but one thing we all know about Tua Tagovailoa's situation when it comes to his contract. Bengals, old-fashioned organization, but I believe that when it comes to the Bengals, they just don't like to pay anybody. They don't like to pay anybody their worth. They didn't start paying players until, I would say, this past year and the 2 years prior. That's the only thing. That's the only time I can really say the Bengals really pay their players. But Bengals and Dolphins, I believe the Bengals, they may need a change at head coach. They may need a change at head coach, America. Because Zach Taylor, he's 50. 62-1. Now I know that there's a lot of people that think that Stephen A. Smith he goes crazy when he says that there needs to be an investigation when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals as far as what does the team do in the offseason, because in September, we all know in September the Cincinnati Bengals aren't ready to play. They've started out the season 0-2. One year they started out the season 1-3. And then they ended up going on a 8-9 game winning streak, got to the playoffs. But to start off the season every year and you're behind the 8 ball, that's what I think of it as. Because Cincinnati, even this season, after the first 3 games, they were 2-1. So I got to give Zach Taylor some improvement on that. But the past 4-5 years always started off 0-3, 1-4, 2-3, 3 and let's say they started off. I think in 2022 they started off after 5 games. They started off 1-4. You cannot have a top-notch team and you keep putting yourself behind the 8 ball very early in the season. So Bengals, they might need to look at themselves in the mirror. Bengals organization, Bengals front office, and ownership might need to look at themselves in the mirror. And they may need to go on ahead and fire Zach Taylor, because there is no reason why Zach Taylor, he's had so much talent on his offense in Cincinnati the past 5 years. You only get to 1 Super Bowl. You only get to a championship. You only get to 1 Super Bowl. You get to a playoff divisional round matchup. You get to an AFC championship. And it seems like for the last 3 years, you've been out of the playoffs. 2023, you were out. Last year, you were out. And this year, you are out. 2026, the Bengals, they might have to do a little furniture moving. Maybe get rid of the head coach, offensive coordinator, probably the defensive coordinator. Now, the defensive coordinator, he would be the first one out. He would be the first one out. So that's all I have to say for the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. Jets and Saints, nobody really watched this game, so I'm not going to do a real deep analyzation of it. But Saints, hey, they won a game at home this season. They've won 2 or 3 games at home this season. And everybody projected the Saints to have one of the worst records in the NFL. But we all know who has the worst record in the NFL. The next game I'm going to cover is the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. My, have the New York Giants fallen. I remember one time when I was growing up, the New York Giants, it was almost like New York Giants, you could just put them in the playoff scenario. They wouldn't even have to play a game. Just put them in the playoff scenario come late December, early January, they would always be in the playoff scenario. But now, I mean, when it comes to the general manager, Joe Schoen, he hasn't made the right decisions for the Giants to have a winning culture. You have John Mara, John Mara, he doesn't even know what to do now when it comes to as far as bringing in the right coaching staff. And even this interim head coach, Mike Kafka, you go for it on 4th down and 5 when you had a chance to kick the field goal and take a lead. I really thought when it comes to the Giants, I thought that maybe last year or the year before last, they were at the bottom of purgatory and loser obscurity, but this is a new low for them. It is. It's a new low, and it's getting to the point where it's hard to watch Giant football. And I'm saying this as a Cowboys fan, that it seems like every time when I was growing up in elementary school and in middle school, it was either between, for the NFC East, it was either between the Giants and the Cowboys for the NFC East. We had a couple years where the Eagles, they wanted to ruffle some feathers a little bit, but mainly Giants and Cowboys, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And now we see where the Giants, as far as organizational overhaul, get rid of Joe Shane. You already got rid of the general manager. Well, excuse me. Joe Shane is the general manager. You got rid of player personnel, the director of player personnel for the Giants. You got rid of Brian Dable. And what can the Giants do to get out of this funk they're in? Get out of this purgatory and loser obscurity, because the old-fashioned Giants football was keep the game close, and then at the end we win the game. But my ever since, and I'm gonna say this, ever since Eli Manning retired, the Giants haven't done anything. Reportedly, a few months ago, I heard that the Giants, they wanted to reach out to Eli Manning for an ownership stake and for having football operations. That's what it could have been. He could have had an ownership stake in the Giants, and he would have been a leader in football operations. The Giants need somebody to make the right decision. And another thing, when it comes to Jackson Dart, it seems like everybody is throwing in the towel on Jackson Dart. Now, I want somebody to clip this. It's been a revolving door at quarterback ever since Eli Manning retired for the New York Giants. I'm really at a loss for words, because the Giants, they just got Jackson Dart, and now you're already wanting to throw in the towel on them. See, this is why the Giants, they can never keep any good football players anymore. I'm going to tell y'all something. See, it's not always the quarterback. And with the New York Giants, one thing I want to tell y'all, what has the offensive line done? In the past 10 years, the Giants, they haven't had any good draftable offensive linemen. And you can see when Daniel Jones left the New York Giants, went to the Colts earlier on in the season, he was having all of this success. It has never, I'm to the point where I'm saying it has never been the offense, it has never been the quarterback's fault when it comes to the New York Giants. Because when you look at the past 10 years, when it comes to the Giants offensive line, I'm going to look at my other projector screen when it comes to the Giants offensive line, when it comes to the Giants offensive rankings over the past 10 years. The Giants have been in the bottom bottom 5 of the NFL when it comes to offensive line. 2017 they were 27th. 2018 they were 32nd. 2019 they were 31st. 2020 they were 31st. 2021 they were 28. 2022 they were 29th. 2023 32nd again. 2024 they were 29th. So their offensive line, they haven't had a good offensive line in the past in the past decade. And I've always tell people, in order for a quarterback to be successful in the NFL, they got to have a good offensive line. Now, as far as the concussions concerned, when it comes to Jackson Dart, that's another situation in and of itself that the Giants can work with him on. But I'm talking about just from an offensive standpoint. The Giants don't have it. Every team, and I do mean every team that has had offensive line trouble the past few years, you really can't judge a quarterback when he's throwing behind a bad offensive line. And that is one thing that I wish most people would think about. But you got the NFL casual fans that are saying, well, if this guy, if he's not playing up to his potential, they just need to get rid of him. It's not always that easy. It's never been that easy. See, this is why I say that the casual NFL fan doesn't know the business structure behind these contracts. They don't know the clauses. They don't know the little, I'm going to say, fine print. That's what it is. Everything that, when it has stipulations and clauses, that is the fine print when it comes to these NFL contracts. And like I said, NFL contracts, see, one thing I can say how NFL contracts work is during the offseason, players don't get paid. I'm going to say that again. An NFL contract is based on the games that you play. In the offseason, the players don't get paid. Players, when they get paid in the offseason, it is from endorsement deals, sponsorships. It is never from their NFL contract. So, everybody, I just told y'all about how NFL contracts work. For the head coach, he gets paid here and there during the offseason, but the regular season and playoffs and Super Bowl, that's where the players make the most money. And when the players make it to the playoffs, they only get that. It's just bonuses after that. Every time you go further and further in the playoffs, you get a playoff bonus. So everybody who didn't know how an NFL contract goes and how it works, you just learned that. New York Giants, it's hard for, I'm going to tell y'all the fan bases that it's hard to be a fan of. I know for New York Giants, people who are New York Giants fans, it's hard for them to be a New York Giant fan. Washington Commanders fans, it's hard for them to be a fan of the Washington Commanders. People that are fans of the Jets, it's hard for them to be a fan of the New York Jets. And there are so many more teams, but I'm not gonna bore y'all to death because I have other games to talk about. The next game I'm going to cover, the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Now, one thing I can say is the Panthers, if they win over the Seahawks, they have a chance at going to the playoffs. No, they don't have a chance. They will be in the playoffs because if you have the Buccaneers lose one more game and the Panthers lose one and the Panthers win one more game, win one of their remaining two games, Panthers are in the playoffs. And here's the playoff scenario for right now. The Panthers would be number 4, and the Buccaneers, well, they would be out of it. They would be. So their season, the Panthers and Buccaneers season is hanging by a thread, and we will know in the next 2 weeks who will be the NFC South champion. Now, like I said, going into the season, I said the NFC South was the worst division in the NFL, and it still is. Excuse me. The Buccaneers are the one team that for the past 5 years, they've won the NFC South with virtually no competition. Coming into this season, I said that the Panthers, I said they would have a chance at making the playoffs. And I do mean everybody, and I mean everybody, they were saying that. The Panthers, they were telling me, really? The Panthers? I'm like, yes, the Panthers. And one thing that I knew when I looked at the Panthers, and I actually didn't expect the Panthers to beat teams like the Rams. I didn't expect that. I expected the Panthers to lose that. But when the Panthers won versus the Rams, I said, okay, this is a different kind of team. Now, this is what I was expecting. So I'm not really surprised by the teams that they won against. But I believe the Panthers, as far as for the NFC South, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. The Buccaneers, they've had their time in the sun when it comes to being the top dog in the NFC South. And I believe that. I believe that the Panthers are going to be NFC South champions. I do. Now, one thing, I don't know what is going to take place in this game versus the Seahawks. I really don't know what is going to take place in that game, but in my video from yesterday, I already picked the Seahawks to win that game over the Panthers and that'll set up a winner-take-all Week 18 showdown in the NFC South, where the Buccaneers, they win that game over the Panthers, they will be in the playoffs. The Panthers, they win that game over the Buccaneers in Week 18, they will be in the playoffs. It's a win and you're in scenario. I can see that happening. So the next game I am going to cover is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos. One thing I can say about this game, I knew that the Jaguars were going to win this game. I just had to, everybody was, penciling the Broncos as the favorite. And, like I said, There are a lot of times where some games I want to go against the grain, but when it comes to my connections, with people in high places, I got to keep, a low profile. You understand? And I can't really say who is gonna win every game. So that's why I have to just go with what I see on the board most of the time. But all in all, this was this was the first meaningful win that the Jaguars have had in a long time. In a long time, this was against a team in the Broncos that have won that previously won 11 straight games. They hadn't lost a game since September 14th. Now we get to a point where in the playoff picture right now for the AFC, you have Broncos at 1, you have the Jaguars at 3. I believe that with the Jaguars, they don't have a chance at they don't have a chance at getting home field advantage. But the Jaguars, they are a good road team. They are a good road team. So now, when we get to the playoff scenario in this case, and we see where the Jaguars measure up against the Broncos. The Broncos, I'm going to tell everybody, the Broncos can be had. We are in this season, this season is not like other seasons when it comes to the playoffs. Because I can remember, over the past 4 years, by the bracket, we could just pencil in this team and that team to make it to the Super Bowl. But now, since the Chiefs aren't making the playoffs, and you have the Eagles that are pretty much limping into the playoffs, anybody, and I do mean anybody, can win the Super Bowl this year. Dare I say, it may be a small market team to win the Super Bowl. Now, I'm going to give y'all some history. The NFL, they don't want small market teams in the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl, if it has small market teams, it will not make as much money. Now, the dream Super Bowl that the NFL wants out of these teams that are stacked up, they want a dream Super Bowl to be between the Patriots, well, mainly the Patriots or the Broncos, because Denver, big sports market. You got the Broncos, you got the Nuggets. You also have a soccer team in Denver. For the Patriots, you got the Patriots, you got the Celtics, you got the Bruins, you got the Red Sox. That's a big sports market up there in Boston. For the Chicago Bears, big sports market. Another team that the NFL probably wants in the Super Bowl. You got the Bears, you got the Bulls. You also got the White Sox. You also got the Chicago White Sox. So they have 3 teams in Chicago. That's a big sports market. Philadelphia, another big sports market. You got the Eagles, you got the 76ers. And you also have the Phillies. I know that they are a hockey team, but I'm just talking about, big sports markets right now. And for the Jaguars, not a big sports market team. So the Jaguars are that one team that's the diamond in the rough, where they don't have a big sports market, and you get to these other teams that are on the list. Chargers. Chargers, they are in one of the biggest sports markets in the world. The LA Chargers. They are in LA, and I'm not going to go down the list of how many teams are in LA. I'm going to just give y'all a few. You got the Chargers, you got the Lakers, you got the Clippers, you got the Dodgers, you got the ALS. You got the ALS soccer team in LA. You got the NLS soccer team in LA. You got the Angels, another baseball team in LA. Also, another team, 49ers, they are also in a big market. Also in that California, that California bracket right there with the Warriors, not the Raiders, but they are right there when it comes to those California teams. So we all know that California is a big market. The Rams, I just mentioned the Rams. Buffalo is not a big sports market. So Buffalo is not a big sports market. Jacksonville is not a big sports market. We have some more teams that are on this list too. Pittsburgh, not a big sports market. Carolina, not a big sports market. Green Bay, not a big sports market. So when y'all look at the playoff bracket, you see that there are, I would say, 3/4 of the teams that are in the playoffs, they have big sports markets. And the four teams that don't have big sports markets, is one of them really gonna make it to the Super Bowl? I'm just saying, because I think that, I've been talking to my coworkers about this. I think this year we are going to have a small market team in the Super Bowl. Now, contrary to the belief, I would prefer 2 big sports market teams, but having 2 small market teams in the NFL, that would be a better story, America. It would be. It would be a better story, not just for the NFL, but for the average fan bases in those cities. Because we've already seen the Seahawks. Seahawks are another small market team. So Seahawks are a small market team. We've already seen, big sports market teams win the Super Bowl, win the NBA Finals, World Series, all of that. But when it comes to these small market teams, I believe the small market teams, they just hold more weight, because when it comes to a small market team, we didn't expect this team to make it. We didn't expect this team to make it. See, that's why I say the NFL, they have a way of scheduling these Super Bowl matchups. Now, I am not going to get into how they schedule those Super Bowl matchups before the season starts, because I would be giving y'all too much information, and I've already said too much on how they do that. So, back to the game at hand. The Jaguars, they have one of those teams that can pretty much win the Super Bowl, but I got to take baby steps. The Jaguars, they win over the Broncos, ties their longest win streak in franchise history with 6. Next week, they face the Indianapolis Colts, and if they win that will be a franchise record 7-game winning streak their longest winning streak in franchise history. That is if they win over the Indianapolis Colts. And as far as the Broncos, look, Broncos, they're already in the playoffs no matter what goes on. So now, the next game I'm going to cover is the Atlanta Falcons and Arizona Cardinals. I just covered the Atlanta Falcons and Arizona Cardinals. Nobody was watching this game. Nobody cares about this game. Let me fast forward to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Woo, woo. I don't know how long I'm going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but let me tell y'all something. Mike Tomlin. That's the one coach that I want to talk about. Everybody been saying all throughout the season, maybe it needs to be changed in Pittsburgh. Maybe Mike Tomlin needs to get fired and go to another team. I'm going to tell y'all something. Y'all keep on talking crap about Mike Tomlin, and y'all saw how Mike Tomlin was after he left out of Detroit. He was pounding his chest, talking about this, my expletive. That's exactly the type of energy you want in a coach, the type of enthusiasm. I keep on telling y'all, Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I would appreciate it if ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC, Yahoo, whoever you are, I would appreciate it if these sports outlets would put Mike Tomlin in the same light as Marty Schottenheimer, Bill Belichick, Mike Holmgren, all the top white head coaches in NFL history. Can y'all please make some space for Mike Tomlin up there? But I know that y'all are not going to do that for other reasons, but I'm not going to get into that because we already know that most of these black coaches are held to a different standard when it comes to coaching an NFL team. But we just gonna let Mike Tomlin's record speak for itself. Now, this is the best chance that Mike Tomlin can win a playoff game in the past 10 years. He is the Steelers. If they win, they play against the Chargers, and the Chargers, they don't do well in cold weather. They are just like the Miami Dolphins. They don't do well in cold weather. Most of the games that the Chargers play in cold weather, they lose. They have an all-time record, and they've lost. But now, I just want to show y'all something. I'm just gonna say this. Mike Tomlin, let's look up. Okay. Here it is, everybody. To all you Mike Tomlin haters. Mike Tomlin's coaching record with the Pittsburgh Steelers, including playoffs as of late 2025, he is 200, 124, and 2. And he also has a Super Bowl. Now, one thing I can say is when it comes to the coaches, Marty Schottenheimer, he was a good head coach. Mike Tomlin, he is a good head coach. And I'm going to tell y'all something about Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has evolved. Mike Tomlin has evolved over the years. Now, credit. Now, credit. Playoff, 8 wins, 11 losses. Non-losing seasons. 19 consecutive non-losing seasons in the NFL for Mike Tomlin, and he tied Bill Belichick for the second longest streak ever. So Mike Tomlin's name holds weight. He's also won a Super Bowl with the Steelers. And also, he is in the top 10 all time as far as coaches with the most wins. So I know everybody keeps on saying that, Mike Tomlin may need a new change in scenery, but Mike Tomlin, he has evolved every year with a new team. So I would appreciate it, like what I said earlier, y'all not have Mike Tomlin in the conversation of him being fired or going to another team, because Mike Tomlin, he is going to be able to walk away on his own terms. We all know that the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is old-fashioned. And with that, when it comes to the Steelers, they have a chance at making the playoffs. The Detroit Lions, they are on the outside looking in. They only have a 7% chance at making the playoffs. 7%. The Steelers have a 91% chance at making the playoffs. So I'm thinking Steelers, they win their next game and the Ravens lose their game. Steelers are pretty much in the playoffs after that. Mike Tomlin, that's all I can say. More and more respect more respect needs to be had with Mike Tomlin's name. And as far as the slander when it comes to Mike Tomlin and him not being the right coach, that is all slander, America. It is. It's all slander. See, we all know that Mike Tomlin, he is not going to go down without a fight. He isn't. So that's all I got to say about the Steelers. And well, one thing I can say is, with this game, the last play of the game, I want to talk about, because that call that the refs made, it was the exact call. Now, I know it's a lot of football fans that didn't like the call, but that's what it says in the rule book. That's what it says in the rule book. So, last play, Detroit Lions, they go down. They were at the 12-yard line. They go down, score. Well, excuse me. Jared Goff threw the ball to his wide receiver, and he wasn't able to get into the end zone. So the wide receiver threw it back to Jared Goff. Jared Goff got into the end zone. Everybody was signaling touchdown. And then there was a flag that came out. Now, one thing I can say, the flag was on the offense. And by rule, after that, the flag that was on offense negates the touchdown. And plus, he scored with no time left. Because Jared Goff, when he got the ball, it was already zeros on the clock. So even if he was able to score, he wouldn't have been able to, the touchdown wouldn't have counted. But if the flag was thrown for defense, it would have been an untimed down, and more than likely the Lions would have won the game. So that was the right call for the referees to make. It was. The next game I'm going to cover, Raiders versus Texans. I'm not really surprised by this game because, the Texans defense, we all know the Texans defense, they are going to be able to stop anybody in their tracks. One thing I can say is Ashton Genty, He had over 100 yards, so congratulations to him in a season where it has been tough to average 85 yards a game. He was able to get 128 yards. So that's all I got to say for the Raiders and Texans. For the Patriots and Ravens, the Patriots haven't lost a road game all season, and they pretty much showed they were the road warriors against the Ravens. The Ravens are 7-8, and there are talks of people firing Jim Harbaugh. So now, once we get to the Ravens situation, Ravens coming into this season, they were, if not the best, the odds-on betting favorite to make it to the AFC Championship game, make it to the AFC Championship game, go to the Super Bowl, and possibly win the Super Bowl. But this has just been a season of mishaps, miscues, injuries, and fumbles. Derrick Henry fumbled. He's fumbled the ball more times now than he's fumbled the ball more times this season than in the past 4 years. Zay Flowers, he's fumbled the ball a lot this season. The Ravens, they've looked like a punchless offense this season. And we all know that John Harbaugh, he's been there for a while. John Harbaugh, he's been with the Ravens. He's been with the Ravens since 2007. 2008. During that time, I'm just going to say it. During that time, I was just in elementary school. So we already know how long that was, 2008 till now. Hell, that's almost 18 years. So I believe that as far as like what John Harbaugh has been doing there, I believe, it's ran its course. I believe after the Ravens lost the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, I think that was the beginning of the end for John Harbaugh as we know it when it comes to being head coach of the Ravens. Now, one thing, the Ravens owner during the offseason, I'll say in the middle of March, he always takes his staff, when it comes to his front office staff, on his boat, and they just start talking about things, for like a good 5-6 hours. He picks a day, he takes his front office staff, and they talk about, the future of the team and the immediate future, like the next season and so on and so on. Do the Ravens really, really fire John Harbaugh? Now, I'm skeptical to put John Harbaugh on my chopping block. That is one coach that it's like I got two or three coaches that are already on my NFL coaching chopping block for that video, but I'm still skeptical about John Harbaugh. It's like, do the Ravens really, are they really going to fire John Harbaugh? Man. I thought John Harbaugh, he would be one of those coaches that could just leave the team on his terms. But when you got talent amongst the upper echelon, when you have a 2,000-yard running back in Derrick Henry and he's not playing he's not playing up to his potential. When you have Lamar Jackson who's not playing up to his potential, when you have Zay Flowers fumbling the ball almost game in and game out, the team is going to have trouble. Team is going to have trouble, and the team is in deep trouble. Now, Ravens are on the outside looking in. They currently have a 9% chance at making the playoffs. The Ravens, they need to win their next 2 games and hope that the Steelers lose their next 2 games. Now, the Steelers, the remaining teams they have on their schedule is the Browns and Ravens. And I think that the Steelers can win both of those. So the Ravens season is pretty much done. Pretty much done. And as far as the Patriots, they are a playoff team already. They are. For the final game of Week 16, the San Francisco 49ers and the Colts. Phillip Rivers, he looked like a shell of himself. He looked like that he was a old man back there just standing in one place. Phillip Rivers, 23 of 35, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Brock Purdy, 25 of 34, 295 yards, 5 TDs, 1 interception. The rushing attack for the 49ers had 145 yards. Third down efficiency in this game for the 49ers, they were 7 of 11. As I always say, a team that is 7 for 11 on third down, they are the gas station, 7-Eleven. They're always open on third down, always open. And for the Colts, 5 of 10. And the Colts defense, Colts season, I'm not going to say it's over, but it's looking like that. The Colts, they only have a 3% chance at making the playoffs. Think back to, I would say, even before Halloween, the Colts, they had one of the best records in football. They were right up there with the Broncos and the Patriots. And ever since then, they have fallen off of a cliff. You've had injuries to Daniel Jones, and it seems like it's like a quarterback by committee now, because you don't want to start Riley Leonard. You called Phillip Rivers, and he hadn't played football in 5 years, but by his statistics, I can say his statistics aren't that bad. So, Colts season, if it's not done, it's surely hanging by a thread. I can say that. It is. Now here is the playoff picture for both AFC and NFC. And the teams that still have a remote chance, these are the 14. These are the 4 teams that have a remote chance at getting to the playoffs. One thing I can say, what's realistic to me in this case is Steelers. They are going to make the playoffs because they just need to win one of their remaining 2 games. And I do believe the Steelers win over the Browns. So the Steelers, they are pretty much in the playoffs already. The Texans, they have that. They'll have that last playoff spot. For the Panthers, now the only thing that with the Panthers and Buccaneers, that's the only matchup in the NFC that is really going to determine the outcome of the playoff bracket in the NFC, because you have four teams that are fighting for two playoff spots in the NFC. Packers, they still have a chance, but Jordan Love, we don't know how long he is going to be out, so that's a wrinkle in and of itself. The Lions season is all but over. They have a 7% chance left remaining at making the playoffs. Buccaneers, they have a 57% chance at making the playoffs right now. Panthers, 43% chance. So the next 2 weeks, we are going to officially find out who is going to have the 4th and 7th spot in both of these conferences, respectfully. And that those are two mystery teams right now, because everybody from 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, everybody is pretty much done. For all of you who are fans of these teams, congratulations on your team making it to the playoffs. Now, the final 4 to 8 teams that have a chance at making the playoffs, best of luck. Best of luck. And with that, those are my reactions to week 16 of the 2025 NFL season. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the Key on Millions.co. We have merchandise. We have live merchandise on Millions.co. We have t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, hats, and we are going to be rolling out so much more product in the year of 2026. So please do not miss out. Do not miss out. And I'm going to tell y'all something. This is going to be the final show of the week. America, because tomorrow we are going to have the day off. Thursday, I'm going to be covering games. I'm going to do my 3-minute segments from every NFL game on Thursday. Friday, we are going to be off. Saturday, we are going to be off. Sunday, we are going to be off. So I am not going to be back on air until Monday of next week and Tuesday of next week. And I am going to put out a motivational video for 2026. And I do mean everybody. You are going to want to watch that motivational video, because it is going to be encouraging and inspiring to everybody who watches the video. But all in all, this was a very, very entertaining weekend of the NFL. And Thursday, we have football on Christmas. Now, one thing, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to be done. When I was growing up, in my childhood, I always saw basketball on Christmas. And I'm like, I want football on Christmas, because I always used to have my football. When I was like 7 or 8, I always used to have my football and playing football on Christmas. And I said, something has got to change. Now, since the turn of the new decade, since it's the 2020s, all of a sudden now, NFL is trying to make more money. We know that NFL is king on Christmas. And I do have, like, a lot of people, they say that the NBA is king on Christmas. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Now, me, I love NFL and NBA, but I got to keep it a buck a buck. I am in that business where I got to keep it 100. And NFL, no matter what day of the year, NFL is going to be king no matter what. NFL, they could play games in spring, and it would still garner more attention than NBA, Final Four, MLB, all of that. So one thing I want to say is this is it for this show. This is it for this show. It for the week. One thing I'm going to say, everybody, I just want to thank everybody who has watched this show every day for almost the last 3 years, because early 2022, I started making this come to fruition. So another thing I just want to say is, everybody, is that even though that 2025 is done, you can still write down those goals that you had for this year but didn't accomplish. Save those goals. Save them for 2026. Just because you didn't accomplish it in a certain year doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that it's a hold up. Well, excuse me. It is a setback in your process of achievement with those goals. Now, that's all I'm going to say, because that is pretty much what I'm going to be saying in my motivational video. For everybody, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Keytime Sports on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, the keyonmillions.co. Here's live merchandise. Here is my media feed. Here is my profile so that you'll know it's me. Here is my profile. And remember, everybody, one last thing. The key is always on time.